Welcome to the Prosperity Lounge, where hope meets freedom and growth gets personal. I'm your host, Joey Ruffalo. Today's conversation is one that every business owner, leader, and communicator needs to hear. Because whether you realize it or not, your success depends on persuasion, not manipulation, not pressure, not closing techniques, but understanding how people actually make decisions and how to communicate in a way that earns trust, alignment, and a genuine yes. My guest today is Patrick Vanderburg, one of the world's leading experts in ethical persuasion and behavioral science. Patrick is a Cialdini Certified Trainer, a founding member of the Cialdini Institute, and a direct partner of Dr. Robert Cialdini, the author of Influence, widely regarded as the most important persuasion book ever written. Patrick has been teaching the science of ethical influence since 2000, helping professionals and organizations communicate more effectively, avoid costly persuasion mistakes, and increase results without sacrificing integrity. In today's episode, we're not just talking about the 7 principles of persuasion. We're talking about why selling feels harder today than it used to, how decision-making has changed, why ethical persuasion outperforms manipulation every time, and how small shifts in communication can create massive breakthroughs in trust and conversion. If you ever wondered why people hesitate, stall, or say no, even when what you're offering generally helps, this conversation will change how you see communication forever. Settle in, pull up a chair. You're about to enter the Prosperity Lounge.
Grab a seat, sip some wisdom, and stay a while. This is the Prosperity Lounge, where growth gets personal. Step inside, we're breaking chains.
Patrick Vanderburg is a Cialdini Certified Trainer, founding member of the Cialdini Institute, and the direct business partner of Dr. Robert Cialdini, the author of Influence, the #1 persuasion book of all time. He's been teaching ethical persuasion since 2000, long before it became trendy, and he helps professionals, teams, and organizations communicate more effectively, convert more consistently, and do it all ethically using proven behavioral science. He's the author of How to Hear Yes More Often and the host of the Ethical Persuasion podcast. Patrick, thanks for pulling up a chair and welcome to the Prosperity Lounge.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And as always, I recall when this became evident to me that this science existed on how people actually make decisions. And it had a big impact on my life. But when I was learning it, things about the science and how it works, I just, it's like my eyes just got bigger. Are you serious? Is this how it works? And I love seeing this when I, let's say deliver a keynote or something. I can see it in my audience that all of a sudden they're starting to hear and appreciate what they're being shared. You don't have to lie, you don't have to cheat, and you can get a lot more yeses from people that were within them. So whilst we can't see your audience while we're doing this, I do hope and I do think that we will get those that increasing size of people's eyes as we go through what we're
Now,
sharing
you said
today.
something during our pre-interview and just behind the scenes for everybody that's listening. Well, I always kind of sit down a little bit with my guests ahead of time to introduce ourselves and kind of go through what we're going to talk about and kind of figure out the questions, make sure it's I understand the topic a little bit better. But we talked a little bit during the pre-interview about persuasion principles, and I'd like you to start with how people actually make decisions. You said people often skip this foundation because they rush straight to the tactics. So why is understanding decision making the real starting point?
And I appreciate you for asking. I think that that's the right place to start because it explains why the principles of persuasion are actually decision
Mm,
triggers. So you're in for a treat, but let's start with a little
excited.
little theory lesson. So I'll lean on the work of a professor, Daniel Kahneman, And he was a professor in psychology and a behavioral scientist. And he won a Nobel Prize in 2002 in
Mm.
economics, which is a little unexpected, right? I mean, you get a Nobel Prize for making an extraordinary contribution to that field. So, what does a behavioral scientist come up to have such an impact on economics? Well, a lot of his research was based on decision making, and decisions shape
Mm.
economics. So, that's where the link fits. So, Daniel Kahneman explains to us that when it comes to decision making, our brain, the brain of our audience that we're trying to cooperate with us, we're trying to convince, we're trying to persuade, to see our point of view, to buy into our vision, or to stay loyal to us, to, if it's teenagers, to clean up their room, right? Their brain also has two parts. So there's system one and system two. System one is fast. It's an unconscious brain. It works outside of our conscious control and it makes decisions
Mm.
automatically. It takes little effort to run and it largely works on shortcuts, rules of thumb. So, an example of such a shortcut is expensive equals
Mm.
good, right? If I'm in a store and I'm looking to buy something or make a decision about something that I really don't know anything about, I could delay my decision. I could leave the situation and I could, go to the library and start reading books. And then 3 months later, I might be able to do some courses on that particular topic. And 5 months later, I'd be back and in the store able to make a well educated decision about that particular issue.
Okay.
But we are faced with so many decisions we need to do every day, including ones we don't know too much about, that we don't really have the time for that. So, without us being completely unable to make decisions because we don't know too much about it, system one might go, hey, hang on a second, expensive equals good. That's a shortcut that we've learned most of the time. If you spend more money on something, you get something that's better, better quality, better suited to purpose, lasts you
Mm-hmm.
longer. And so the rule expensive equals good allows us a shortcut to a quicker
Okay.
decision.
Makes sense.
There's other shortcuts like that. Yeah, if a lot of other people are doing it, then that must be the right thing to do,
Groupthink, right?
right? If you're standing on a train station in a foreign country, there's announcements going over the speakers, you've got no idea what they're talking about, and all the locals start heading to one end of the station, you don't stand still, right? You go with them. Very much
Right.
like a herd,
Mentality,
right?
yeah.
It's like a school of fish, right? They all turn left. There's not one fish that keeps going straight because they must know something, right? And if it's that many, then it makes sense to follow the crowd. So that is also a shortcut that works a lot of the time. Inevitably, it also doesn't work all the time. Sometimes what a lot of people are doing is wrong, right? We've heard stories of a car backfiring and that resulting in a stampede and people getting
Mm.
killed. Right? Obviously, that was the wrong decision. And there's a cool story of a bank in Singapore who there was a run on the bank all of a
Mm.
sudden in the morning, and they couldn't figure out why. And they had to, as in people started to withdraw their money, and a half an hour from closing, they had to close the bank. And after investigation, what had happened is that morning there was a strike of the buses, and there was a bus stop in front of the bank. So there were lots of people waiting for the bus in front of the bank, and as people drove by, they thought, "Hey, hang on! They're all waiting in front of the bank. There's probably some financial issue, right? They're waiting to withdraw their money." So people started to line up at the bank, and so they opened up, rushed in, and this whole thing got started, right? So yeah, people followed the crowd, but it was also
Mm.
incorrect. So, okay, so that's system one, right? Fast, runs unconsciously, makes decisions automatically, low energy, low cost to run, but error prone. All right, then we have system two. System two is our logical, rational part of the brain. It runs slowly, it costs a lot of energy to run, And we use it for complex decisions and situations. And there is a caveat with system 2. It relies on our attention. And this is where the problem kicks in, because we have a reduced amount, a limited budget of attention every day. So system 2, if you're, let's say, trying to park in a tight
Hmm.
parking spot, you need system 2 for that. And you can imagine if you weren't concentrating, if you didn't pay attention, that wouldn't turn out so well. Whereas system 1, the intuitive brain, it does a lot of tasks. It can drive a car on an empty road, right? Sometimes you
Hmm.
you come home and you can't remember what turnoff you took from the freeway. That's because you were not driving. System 1 was.
Mm.
All right. So system 2 is more reliable, the logical, rational brain, but it actually doesn't want to engage. Daniel Kahneman calls it a lazy controller. It doesn't really engage unless forced to. It's quite happy to take the decisions from system 1, the intuitive brain. So Daniel Kahneman's research shows back in 2002 that 90% of our decisions are made by system 1, outside of our
Wow.
conscious control and automatically. Now it's said that that is 95%, and it would be increasing even further. And so here, normally a couple of questions
Sure.
bubble up. First of all,
Yeah.
wow, how many decisions can you actually make on autopilot, right? Outside of
Sure.
our conscious control. And the other question is, why is this increasing? That has to do with our attention span. So in the 80s, our attention span used to be 20 minutes. Do you have any idea what the attention span of the famous goldfish is?
Oh, it was like half a second or something like that.
Oh, I'll give him a little bit more credit. 9
9 seconds.
seconds
Okay.
for the goldfish, right? 9 seconds for the gold. Um, our attention span is now 7 seconds. We've been beaten by the goldfish.
Wow.
And that has to do with our environment. Dr. Cialdini would call it that we live in the most information overloaded, stimulus saturated environment that has ever existed on the planet. Right? More things come at us than ever before. And your audience, the people that you're trying to influence, persuade, convince. And
Hmm.
so because there's so much coming at us, our attention span's getting shorter. And we've all done that. You need to make a phone call, you grab your phone, you unlock it, and then 34 apps pop up asking you to make a decision that you interact with them. And then there's all these icons with little red
Oh yeah.
dots on it, which are all prompts for you to go, ooh, you got a message, or ooh, somebody likes you, right? All decisions that need to be made. Now you might click on something. Goodness, right? Now more comes up, more link,
Right.
message from here, message from her. This takes you to an article, that takes you to a video. 20 minutes later, you put the phone down and you go, what did I pick that up for? Right? You didn't even last
Yeah.
7 seconds. You were gone.
That's actually
Right.
very interesting,
So
Patrick. Because in the
our
sorry,
attention spans,
in the realm of like social media and social media marketing, and even with like podcasting and YouTube and things like that, I mean, the trend towards from long form content like we're doing today, like in a podcast or long form video, to short content is being promoted and being pushed out by the algorithms on YouTube and things like TikTok and Instagram, where it is these short, compact 3 second reels. If you don't have a hook within the first 3 seconds, you're going to lose them, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically what you're saying. That first, if you don't get them in the first 7 seconds, you've lost them now. You had more time later on before, but now if you don't grab them in the first 7 seconds, you've lost them. So you have to have a great hook. You have to have some really dynamite content, something flashy on the page to kind of draw them in so they stay a little bit past that 7 second time frame. So it's getting harder and harder to stand out in that crowd now. And I can see what you're, oh man, that's it makes it harder for me. I don't like that.
yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
man.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, we have to deal with the fact people have a shorter
Mm,
attention span. But then what do you put in that seven
right.
seconds? Right. And we can use things like movement and colors and things becoming bigger and smaller because we're sort of hardwired to pay attention to that. It's has to do with our survival instincts. But other than that, what do you actually say? I mean, I'm sure you get approached on places like LinkedIn, right? And then somebody's able to send you a message and they go straight. I mean, it happened today. I was, oh, we've got a new service where we do lead generation for businesses, and we were wondering if you were interested to do any of that. And there's
I'm
nothing
out.
in there to actually get the automatic
Yeah.
decision making part of my brain to go, you know what, I should investigate this further. You
Yeah.
dismiss it. So not only have you got less time to to grab people's attention, you've only got 7 seconds to raise something to catch them or to establish some level of a relationship or some level of understanding that other people value what it is you say and they should pay
Yeah.
attention to it. But we're running ahead
No,
of
but actually
ourselves a
gets
little
into
bit.
the next
So
question that I wanted to ask about
let's go back to
being,
system. Sorry.
selling getting harder nowadays. We talk about, the amount of touch points that people face when they make a buying decision. And it used to be, 8 to 10 or 12 to 15 or whatever it was. Now it's over 100 because you're getting inundated with just a lot of people just hitting you with stuff. And like you said, things that just, you read it and you're just like, it doesn't do anything for me. I'm done. So one of the things is trying to figure out the right message you're going to put out, the right question and answer. What is there a problem that you're solving for somebody? What's that impactful statement you're going to make within the first 7 seconds, 2 sentences, whatever it is? So selling is getting a lot harder nowadays. And do, one of the things that could shorten that time, I think we talked about a little bit, was trust and building trust between the buyer and the seller, or the person doing business and the person that wants to do business. Um, but trust is not something you can earn in 7 seconds, right? It's, if it is, give me the secret, please.
You can actually. Do you think your audience would be interested in
Yeah,
that?
let's do it, man. I'm interested in it, so that's all I care.
Well, let me circle back to it.
Oh
I'll
yeah,
be quick. Let me finish the system one, system
absolutely.
two
That's perfect. Yeah,
punchline,
let's get back to
right?
it. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm excited.
So, all right. So that's all right. I'm used to it. All right. So, system one, fast, runs all the time, intuitive, in charge of 95% of the decisions. System two, our slower, logical brain doesn't really want to engage, right? Our logical brain that we need for rational arguments and logical arguments, but only in charge of 5% of the decisions. So the problem is this: when we are sitting there and we're thinking, okay, how am I going to convince this other party to respond to my lead generating efforts, or to respond well to this initial chat that we're going to have so that I can book them on a longer appointment, right? Which is maybe a showcase of what you do, at the end of which you want them to, buy into what you're providing them. When we're in that longer call, how am I going to convince them that what we have available for them is good, they're in safe hands, that they'll sign with us? Or how am I going to convince the people that already deal with us to be more loyal to us or more forgiving to us? Might we make a mistake in the future? How am I going to get my team to buy into my vision? If you're, if you're the boss, let's say, if you've got a team of executives underneath you, how do you get them to stay loyal to you, even if you've made some decision mistakes,
Mhm.
let's say, some visions you've had that didn't turn out too well? How do you get them to stay loyal to you? Because this is all behavior, right? A lot of
Right.
people think that persuasion is about sales. Well, it certainly is important there, but it is not only sales. It's actually about behavior. And so when you're thinking, how am I going to do this? You are consciously thinking, right? And so you're in system two at that time. And system two has the tendency to come up with the types of information that needs system two in the other person to process it. And they don't have the bandwidth for that anymore. And so your audience pushes back from you, and your wonderful, genuinely good for them, good value proposal They decide not to decide.
Hmm.
And so we would argue that, let's say, if you do 1,000 proposals, you might get a certain amount of yeses, a small amount of
Sure.
yeses. All the other ones, um, you would assign that you got no on them, right? People didn't use your services. They didn't follow the safety precautions that you wanted them to
Hmm.
follow, right? Remember, it's behavior related. And so a large amount of people, let's say, did not do the desired behavior. I would argue that a rather large percentage of that, larger than you probably imagine, could have been a yes if you had provided them the right information for system one to make a decision on, right? And so without using the science, we are constantly losing out on successes, sales, profit, competitive advantage, or cooperation that was yours to have. And
Oh.
if you've got, let's say, a sales team that is still struggling, trying to convince people without actually knowing what 100 years worth of science has to say about it, it's very unnecessary, and it's not actually difficult to learn, and it's rather fun to learn, as you'll discover. So that is a summary of how decisions are made. So we need information. Actually, what we need is a systematic approach for us to use our system two thinking, our full brain power, to come up with pieces of information that qualify as shortcuts for system one. And when system one is able to make a decision, system two very likely agrees with this, and we can dramatically increase our compliance. Does that
Let
make
me see if
sense?
I understand. So we need to come up with ways. System two has to do a lot of the heavy lifting to come up with ways to convince system one to go along with what system two wants. And if system one then says it because system two put it out there,
Yeah,
system two will go along with it, and then 100% of you will go along with it. So 5% of you is trying to convince the other 95% of you to do what the 5% of you should do. And once they agree with it, you're good to go. Man, okay.
yeah, sort of. As in, most of us, most people in business, they aim their argument at that part of the brain that's only in charge of 5% of the decisions. And that ratio is not even crazy to think about. 5% versus 95% might give you some insight of what might actually happen in terms of how many yeses you might get. I've got a little cheat note in front of me because I don't want to misquote anything. Let me give you an
Okay.
example, just to get you
Perfect.
excited. One of my favorite case studies is the Canadian Cancer Association had a collection period, and what they did the week before the collection, they went to every other house and they asked people if they were favorable to the Cancer Association, to which most people, I think nearly 100% said, yes, of course, we're happy, good for that sort of work to be done. And so they were asked if they would be willing to wear a little lapel pin, which just really small, just said, support your local cancer association. And they were asked, would you mind wearing this in the lead up to the collection period that start next week? And nearly everybody said, yeah, oh, sure, give me the pin, I'll wear that. And so a week later, the collection period started. And where the week before they went to every other house, they now, of course, went to every house. And so the question is, how willing were these people to make a donation? So the people where they had not gone on record as being favorable to the Cancer Association by accepting and wearing the little lapel pin, 46% of people made a donation. But in the houses where they had gone on record as being favorable with the pin, 76% made a donation. And they
Mm.
were larger, right? So that's a massive increase from 46% to 76%. And that's not a 30% increase, right? That's much more than that. So by making an initial step, which links into the principle of consistency, which I'll explain, we got a lot more yeses that were within that situation. And without making that step, we would have lost all those yeses. So it can be exceedingly
Wow.
powerful.
That is that's awesome. I'm gonna my head is exploding right now, Patrick, because I'm trying to take it all in. But wow.
Well, hold on to it.
Oh
There's more to
gosh.
come.
Okay, hold on. Let me tighten it up a little bit here. All right. Um, one of
All right. Shall we move on to the
Yeah, that's actually
principles?
what I was gonna come up with here is the principles. So you're a Cialdini certified trainer, which is the gold standard out there. For someone brand new to this, what are the seven? So I looked it up. There's seven principles of persuasion. What are those seven, and which one do people most consistently underestimate?
Okay, cool. That's a very good loaded question, as in there's a lot more to it. All right. How many hours
We
have
can
we
keep
got
going,
today?
buddy.
Just kidding. All right. So there is seven what we call universal principles of persuasion. Why do we call them universal? We call them universal because they work in all languages, all cultures, and all countries. And that in itself is powerful, right? Because our cultures are intermixed, right? And it is so easy to do business with people in other countries. So this is something that helps you and your team no matter who you talk to or where. All right, so seven principles. All these words you've heard
Okay.
before, and you might even know what they sort of mean. But chances are is that you don't really comprehend what the activators are of these principles or what the amplifiers are of these principles. So let me dive in a little bit. All right, so we have the principle of reciprocity, which we've all heard of. And so we could describe the rule of reciprocity in as that people feel a need to give back the same type of behavior that was first given to them, right? If I invite you to my birthday party, well, then you should invite me to yours, right? And in the context of compliance, we say yes more readily to people that we feel we owe
Mm,
something to. And a classic example in the supermarket is the tray with cheese, right? Little samples of yogurt, sausage, or cheese, right? And most people honestly think that if they take that piece of cheese, that does not change their behavior. But the research is very clear. When you give somebody a sample, when you give things away, people reciprocate, people buy more. And what I think is hilarious is that it doesn't even matter if you hate the cheese, because it's not about the cheese. It's about that you gave a nice behavior
wow.
to me. And now I need to give a nice behavior back to you. I'll just buy more of something else, right? And you know, retail heavyweights like Costco will tell you that it doesn't matter what you supply samples of, be it beer, pizza, or lipstick, right? You sell more,
Makes sense.
right? So a lot of people in business know this
Mhm,
concept, right? So they take, okay, cool. We got to give people stuff,
mhm.
right? Okay, cool. So a lot of businesses, though, they invest in this because they think they're activating the principle of reciprocity, and they're completely missing the mark. And I'll give you a good example of where that goes wrong, and then hopefully you'll understand why that is wrong. So, on a lot of websites, people put up, let's say, a free ebook that you can download. Right? We have a wonderful ebook. Just put your name, your email address in. We'll send you the download link. Our gift to you. Yeah, nice try. That's not going to activate reciprocity. I'm not saying it's not a bad lead generator, but if you're thinking that activates reciprocity, you're making a large mistake. A gift, something that's given to someone, is something that's given without a requirement needing to be met. So name and email address first, and then we'll send you the download link. That's not a gift, it's a reward. And that's how people experience it. I gave you my email address and I get this in return. There's no feeling that I need to reciprocate anything beyond
Oh,
that
okay.
point. Where, let's say, if you use that tactic
Mhm.
in your business, you could still keep it, but in addition to it, what you could do is maybe provide a PDF checklist. Let's say you're in finances or something,
Mm,
retirement sort of strategies. You might say, listen, if you're planning on retiring and you want to have things structured properly, in the next 5 to 10 years, then these are 15 things that you should not fail to do or get into place or prepare, blah blah, in the lead up to that period, so that when we come and assist you, you're much better off. No need for a name or email address. just right click and download. Now it's a gift. Now it's a piece of cheese, right? And so that activates reciprocity. And then later, when you come with a request like, oh, we have a webinar on, please come join us, right? Now you're going to be empowered by that power of reciprocity that sits there. All right, I'll move on. Interrupt me or write down if you want to circle back to something in the end. All right, so let's move on to the principle of liking. Liking, we could define as we like people that are like us, people that like us, and people that like us and say so. All right, so if I extract that a little bit, we like people that are like us means we like people that are similar to us. You've sat in an airport and you sit next to somebody and they're in the same activity as you. I don't know, they have a big case of golf clubs with them or something, and you're into golf. So, did you have a good game? Right. And all of a sudden you got this familiarity towards each other because you're similar.
Right.
Right. With the liking, we're always, especially in sales, we're told if you want people to cooperate with you, then you need to be likable. Well, that's not bad, but it's not the most powerful. If instead of me liking you, let's say you're trying to sell me your services or product, it's nice if I like you. But if I get the feeling that you genuinely like me, that is far more powerful, because if you like me, even if I'm not quite sure about you yet, if you like me, well, then I'm safe with you, because if you like me, you're going to look after me, right? And we like people that like us and say so means compliments, right? We probably all know that we achieve a lot more with compliments than criticism. But try it today. First person you see, look for something you genuinely like or appreciate about them. Could be a jacket, earrings, hair, tie, shoes, bag, right? Just make a genuine compliment and see them start smiling, relaxing. You'll probably have a little bit of a chat. It's a relationship builder. All right, so there's liking. Let's move on to unity. So unity was the last principle to be added by Dr. Cialdini. So unity is often confused with liking. Liking is about similarities. Unity is about feeling that we are part of the same community. We could refer to us in our relationship as we, right? I like or love riding motorcycles. I've got a beautiful Harley. And, me and my wife, we love getting out on the bikes and going for a ride. We, as the biking community, we have a community. We greet each other on the road. If somebody's pulled over looking at their engine or something, it won't take too long for another biker to pull up behind them and go, "Oi, need a hand?" So, we bikers, let's say, we could just mention that as being a community. So there's unity between us. And so you are also part of communities with other people. Actually, you're constantly evaluating who that we label applies to. And that is, that gives us favoritism. And so if you can have that with a person you're talking to, if it's genuinely in the situation, that's something that shouldn't be missed. All right, then social proof. You're probably familiar with that term. I think a lot of people listening to this are familiar with that term. The reason you know the term is because Dr. Cialdini came up with it. Before that, it used to be called consensus, which was a little harder to understand. So social proof was much clearer. So social proof says that we follow the leads of others, especially when they are numerous, when they are similar to us, and when we are uncertain. And good example, I was at a conference a few days ago, and this seemed to work for a lot of people. You're hungry, you're walking through a strange city. There's two restaurants. One restaurant's empty, one restaurant's full or half full. Which restaurant do you go into? And everybody goes, well, not the empty one, right? Those people must know something that, I'll just do what they do, right? So system one has made that decision for you in a split second. No, we'll go to that one. But now imagine you walk up to the restaurant, and as you get closer to it, you now notice that everybody that's in the restaurant is part of the local, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but they're part of the local Mohawk Association, right? Or they are part of a
Sure.
biker club, right? They all got helmets on the table and that sort of stuff. Do you still go in? Maybe not. Unless you're a biker, then you definitely go in. Or if you were part of the, if you appreciated Mohawks, then you go, oh, cool, this is going to be great,
Mhm.
right? And then you do go in. So that's where that similarity amplifier kicks in, right? So there's more to it. But when it comes to us, for example, sharing testimonials with people, we tend to deliver a spray of testimonials of different people. If you know you're talking to someone who's a mature woman who is in business for
Mhm.
herself, you can turn up with 5 testimonials of different people, a young guy, a young girl, an older couple, and a younger couple, an older mature man who runs a business to himself, and a mature female who runs a business to herself. But if you had testimonials of all mature women who were in business for themselves, it's more similar. And therefore, the social proof is far more powerful. There's a lot more to social proof. If you think that testimonials are important for your business, well, congratulations. But there is so much more powerful stuff that social proof has to offer, and chances are you're not using any of it. So imagine what would happen if you didn't use testimonials nowadays,
Right.
right? 98% of online shoppers say that detailed online reviews are an important factor on deciding on what and where to buy. So imagine what you're not using yet. Then principle of authority. Authority is that we follow the leads of people who have genuinely more knowledge or wisdom on a
Mm.
topic. That's why if you have the
Yeah.
opinions of a doctor or an expert that aligns with your proposal, that empowers it. But you are also an authority. You are also someone who knows their stuff. But once you're face to face with someone, you cannot sing your own praises. And I see this so often. People stand up or they do a presentation and go, I've got a master's degree in this, and I went to this university, and da 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 da. And the subconscious of our audience goes, you're full of yourself, right? So you lose authority and you lose liking. You cannot sing your own praises once you're face to face with someone. So you have to arrange for that to be conveyed before you talk to them. Then we get 2 left: consistency and scarcity. So consistency, that was an example of the Cancer Association with the
Mhm.
pin. People feel an internal pressure to stay true to past actions and statements that they've made. And, an example might be you want to go mountain biking on the weekend and get one of your friends to come with you, one of your colleagues. You might ask them, say, hey, do you consider yourself an adventurous type of person? And most people think they're adventurous, right? And creative. Most of us think we're creative, more than average. Do you think you're an adventurous kind of person? Yeah. Oh, yes, I'm an adventurous kind of person. Okay, great. Hey, I'm going mountain biking on this weekend. Do you want to come with me? Right. So now, like, you put your foot in it, sort
Yeah.
of, right? As in, you've just made a statement that you're an adventurous type of person. It is now harder to say yes to a proposal that aligns with that statement that you've made. Very cool principle. Goes very deep. And then lastly, we've got scarcity. So scarcity, the rule you could say is that we value things more that are less available. And that's probably the most abused principle that we see out there now. People generate false scarcity all the time. They have sales for no good reason. You're on a website, and by the time you come to the checkout, it's like, oh, we have a sale on, and it finishes in 2 hours and 16 minutes. And oh, we're low on stock, right? And if you forget about the tab and you find it again 3 weeks later, well, guess what? It's still 2 hours and 5 minutes worth of sale time left, and it's still low on stock, right? So people abuse this, and we really need to be on the lookout because when this backfires on us, when people dare to use these principles on us unethically, we should jump on them, and I mean that's
Yeah.
not on. Also, research shows, just in case you're wondering, you can use persuasion science unethically, and it might produce short-term results, but it produces long-term disaster because nobody tends to come back to a situation where they didn't do well in the arrangement where research shows ethical use produces short-term win and long-term success and builds strong, loyal relationships. So that's a bit of a rundown of the 7
I love that.
principles.
In the scarcity one, for example, the first thing that came to my mind is, part of my hobby is collecting sports memorabilia and sports cars and things like that. I don't know if they do that over where you're at, but here in the States, it's pretty big. And, you collect a certain player and a product gets put out every year. And there's usually numbered cards, like out of 10 or something out of the most elusive one of one. This is the only one in existence of this player's card. But it turns out that they've started producing now in the last few years so many one of ones of the player in the same set. So you might have this is the one of one blue version, the one of one red version, the one of one white version, the one of one prism multicolor version. And it's this never ending chase to get the more elusive one on ones. But what happens is it devalues the overall card and the overall allure of the one of one because the scarcity is it's not scarce. There's 100 one of ones of the same player in the same set rather than just one. So you can easily find a one of one, but it's not the
Yeah, so
same.
they're milking that
And
a
you
little
see the
bit.
backlash on the Facebook posts when the companies put up, "Hey, we here's another one of one that was found," or somebody, pulled it out on a video, and you see the backlash in the comments of like, "I'm never buying this product again. I'm done. This is ridiculous." Blah blah blah, and you could see the tide turning on people. Like you said, it's this, you do so much of it to the point that it tips in the other direction. So you built this scarcity to get people back into buying the product because you have elusive stuff, but then everything's elusive and one of one that it's not a one of one anymore. And I love that. I love that thought process.
Yeah, and nowadays with social media, you can destroy a personal brand or a company brand literally in a day, and that stuff follows you around for a long
Yeah.
time. And you know what? There's no need to use this unethically. If you just took the time to learn this properly or get your team to learn this properly, and it's not like a university course. I mean, our flagship training, if you don't mind me saying, we've got this flagship course, Dr. Cialdini designed, and it's combined with live training sessions with us trainers. That's about a 20-hour investment spread over 8 weeks. That can fit into your
Yeah.
schedule, right? So it's not that hard to actually really get down into it and understand how this works. So you don't have to, you know, keep using strategies. Maybe you've figured out one strategy that is genuine and ethical and it works for you. That's wonderful, like testimonials. But goodness, social proof probably has a dozen different type of strategies, and then there's 7 principles that have a similar amount of strategies. You're missing out on so many forks in the road where you could be moving towards yes, but you're actually steering
So,
towards no.
so
So yeah, so it's
yeah.
sometimes tempting to use this unethically, but yeah, it once found out, and you will eventually, it causes credibility craters, right? Nobody wants to
So
go
one of
back
the
there.
questions I had from you when you were breaking that down was the authority one, where you said people getting up and you kind of introduce yourself. And we find ourselves in networking meetings and networking groups where you have like that 30 seconds to get up your elevator pitch. And most people get up there and say, "Hey, I'm Joey Ruffalo. I have an MBA in this and I do this and I help people do that, blah, 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 blah. Thank you." And you sit down and you basically just tell people who you are as opposed to what you do and what problems you solve. And I think, is that one of the things I've sort of worked with business owners on is getting away from the who you are and the what you do and the problem you solve as your authority. Is that something that sort of fits in that scope of authority, or am I just making sure I'm making sure I'm doing my people good?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, no. What is interesting? How much time? How much longer
We
do you
could
want to
go a
go
little
with
bit
this? By
longer,
the way,
man.
Joey.
I'm good. Yeah, I got a few more minutes. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So you could say that to get to for somebody to say yes, you kind of need three things. You need relationship. You need them to be certain about what it is you offer, and they need to have motivation to
Mm,
act.
yeah.
Would you agree? If I give you the tools that you can build a strong relationship, that you can reduce people's uncertainty about what it is you're actually offering, and you can motivate them into action. Is there anything else you need?
Mm.
I normally ask this to a crowd of people and I get blank stares, as in, no, can't actually think of anything. All right. So we need a relationship, right? If we don't have a relationship, if we dislike someone, we're going to go out of our way to not deal with them, right? So we want a strong relationship. If we don't have that, it gets really hard. Let's say you can try and motivate people with scarcity, but if they don't like you, well, then you're not going to be very effective at that. So we need to build a relationship. Sometimes you have a good relationship, but they're not quite sure about what it is you're offering. And that's where you get objections, right? Of course, the most common objection is, oh, it's too expensive for me, right? Which is often a smokescreen objection. And also people in sales will tell you, well, you just haven't shown enough value
Mm.
yet. I would say you haven't made sure that they're not uncertain about what it is you're offered, that that's right for them. So we need to reduce that uncertainty. And everybody goes into every discussion or situation being uncertain about what it is you're bringing up with me. And as long as I stay uncertain, it's going to be really hard to move on, right? So we need to reduce that uncertainty. So in some situations, you have a good relationship, you've reduced that uncertainty, right? They love you and they love your product and your service. When I'm ready, I'm going to get your stuff. But they don't buy it, do
No.
they? Right? So now motivation is lacking. And so within these principles, there's principles that build, repair, and strengthen relationships. There's principles that reduce uncertainty. And there's principles that motivate into action. And so when a common question I get is, what's your favorite principle? Or what is the most powerful principle that people should know about? And I can't actually answer that because it depends on where you
Mm.
are, right? If you're trying to link,
Mm.
you're trying to reach out to someone you've never connected with, well, then you have no relationship. You can talk about scarcity all you want, but it's not going to be as successful as if you had more relationship and reduced uncertainty. So I would sprinkle some information that is in the relationship building category. And then later you start working on some of the other ones. So yeah, but you did ask me about trust. And I had a little nugget which I asked if your audience would appreciate it. So I'd hate not to deliver. I'd hate to not be
That's called
consistent.
a tease. We sprinkled it
So
for a
you
while. We teased it
asked
for a bit.
if you
Go for it, buddy.
so you asked
No.
you asked to
Mm-hmm.
establish trust, right? And you said, well, you can't do that in 7 seconds. And I sort of countered you and I said, yes, you can. This is a very cool dynamic. It has to do with the principle of authority, because authority is about expert wisdom, but authority is also about believability. Just because you write all this positive stuff on your website or in your sales spiel doesn't people believe it, right? There's a certain amount of believability. And so in the social sciences, they've figured out a way how you can establish trust quickly. And we get that from the television advertising world, where you have maybe 30 seconds to get your message across, and how do you get people to believe you? And so I'm going to raise an example, and that's the company L'Oreal, the
Okay.
cosmetics brand. So L'Oreal has a USP, a slogan, right? And at the moment, that is, you're worth it,
Mm.
which came from the previous version, we're worth it, which came from, if I get my story right, the original, which was, we're expensive, but worth it. Now, that seems counterintuitive. Like, all three actually mean the same thing when you think about it, but the first one certainly explains the concept easier. It seems counterintuitive to bring up a weakness in your
Mm-hmm.
case, right? As in, let's say you've got a new business, you've only been around for 3 months, and you've got all these competitors that are, been in that industry for much longer time. That's a weakness for you, right? You're a new player. Is that smart to bring that up? Well, as it turns out, yes. When we raise a weakness in our case, something that works against our own self-interest, we are instantly perceived as a trustworthy source of information. Because our audience feels, listen, if you're honest enough to talk about the weaknesses in your case, well, then I must be able to trust you when it comes to the strengths of your case.
Wow.
Right? So mentioning a weakness establishes credibility and trust. But this goes a little deeper. It turns out that if you mention a weakness and then you follow it by a strength, a positive about your case, that positive is more believed than it otherwise would be. And so when it comes to this example of L'Oreal, we're expensive, definitely a weakness, but I don't think we're going to get we're going to figure out eventually, right, when we get to the
Right.
register. I mean, eventually we figure this out that they're expensive. Right? We're expensive. That's the weakness. And then the hinge word, which in this case was but. A lot of people think that but is magical. It's not. It's just a hinge word. However, it will do exactly the same thing. We're expensive, but we're worth, or we're expensive but
Mm-hmm.
worth it, right? So the worth it is more believed than it otherwise would be. And that USP was responsible for a 300% increase in market share for L'Oreal.
Wow.
And so when you have a case to make to someone, when you put a brochure together, when you're doing a pitch, when you're writing a website, and websites, don't get me started, right? All the website designers, or most of them, right? Bless their little hearts, as in they want to make these pretty websites, but pretty is not
No.
persuasive. All websites are pretty now, right? A website needs to be custom designed around persuasion, not sprinkled on in the end. And then they often don't even do it. Look at your homepage. Are you just talking praise about yourself? Well, then you're not being as credible as you could be. You should be mentioning a weakness somewhere and early on, because then what it comes after it is more believed.
It does.
Does it
Yeah.
help
And it's
you?
kind of aligns with how I present myself sometimes to people as a coach. I had somebody tell me a long time because I had really struggled with living with and expressing what I went through in order to start helping people. So I was a massive amount of debt and ashamed of it, and then got out of it, but never really told people the story of where I was. And I had somebody tell me one time that I walked through a mess to deliver a message. And that kind of resonated with me. And I started, it took me a really long time. And I was coaching for quite a while before I just lived it and said, this is what I was. I was X amount in debt. It took me this long to get out. And now I'm helping people not be like me. And that weakness, like you said, leading with that is like, I'm not perfect. Yeah, I know that I have the answers, but I'm not perfect. I was where you were or worse. And now I'm where you want to be or better. It's that instant authority I think you're kind of driving at. It's like,
Yeah.
and I love that. I love that I kind of been doing, I've kind of been doing that. So yay for me. Kudos. I love that.
Yeah. And often, just being a genuinely caring person, or, honest and straightforward, that's already a nice step toward being
Yeah.
persuasive. When you're interested in helping other people, and then reciprocity will be kicking in. If you have a genuine interest in other people, what do they like? What are they into? You'll discover similarities that you have. So that'll help towards your liking. And yeah, if you're just honest, say, listen, we might not have been on the market for that long yet, but we have the latest equipment and the latest technology, and we have a young, driven team that just doesn't stop until our clients are absolutely happy.
Absolutely.
Right now, that statement wouldn't mean anything if it didn't come with the weakness in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Love that.
powerful
Well,
stuff.
Patrick, I'm going to ask you a question here, and I hope I get a good answer from you. I want to invite you back for another episode because I have on my note sheet about three or four other segments I wanted to get to with you, but I want to make sure that we don't go really, really long on this one and kind of be impactful with this one because there's a couple of things here that I want to get to, and I'm going to tease it for next time. So I'm going to put it out there in the world. The thing that I'm most interested in is this power of no. And you had said something on a recent video. There's a moment of power after someone says no to you, and if you know what to do in that moment, you can turn that no into a yes. But retreating from that moment is an endless no. And I want to learn from you how not to retreat, how to have power in the no in that moment. So I'm going to tease that, hopefully for a future episode.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. I'd love to hear if your audience would appreciate to learn about what this power after the no is, how you can turn a no into a yes, because this is pretty powerful stuff that I normally cover in my
Yeah,
keynotes. Um, so I think we could ask your audience to give us a little bit of feedback.
so I'll put it out there.
Right, a lot of effort goes in. I mean, I run my own podcast; it takes a lot of time to actually make these things. Um, we'd love to hear from you if you valued what you've heard here today. What is your most favorite strategy I've shared with you? And I'm sure Joey would appreciate if you would leave an online review on his podcast, because that's often one of the few ways how we can tell that we're delivering what people are
Yeah.
enjoying. So, yeah, I'm all happy to come back and let's see if we can get some interaction from those who are listening to us.
Leave us a
And
testimonial, which is
yeah,
only one
if
part of the social proof.
we get some interaction, we'll go into the.
I said, leave us
Sorry,
a
say again.
testimonial, which is only one part of the social proof. Have you understood? Leave us a review.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you're
Yeah,
helping other people, really. I mean, if you find value in Joey's show, which I'm sure you are, why would you not want to help other people make that decision? Because your testimonial functions as system one information for
right.
them, right? So it's an easier decision. Say, hey, wow, 150 people, are raving about Joey's show. I can't go too far wrong doing the same behavior. I'll listen as well, right? So, yeah, it's very valuable for us, but you're helping other people provided it's
So
genuine.
thank you so much for that, Patrick. Well, before we end here, I have our 10 rapid fire round questions for you. Every guest gets the same questions. I want to give those to you right now. Just first thing off the top of your head. Um, let's roll. Let's see what it's about. First question. What's the best book you ever read that changed your perspective?
Yeah, Dr. Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, should absolutely be in your library. And if you want a practical sort of combination, it's more about theory and case studies and self defense. How do you defend yourself? The book I wrote with my co authors, who are all Cialdini Certified Trainers, How to Hear Yes More Often, is a beautiful combination with his book. So if you haven't got his book yet, buy them together.
Perfect. What's a daily habit that contributes most to your success?
I try and I'm by no means great at it, but I try and build some structure in my day, as in do things. I'm quite happy to turn emails off and phones off. My phone often doesn't even ring, so I can concentrate. So I'm less distracted, so I have more attention. Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the things that helps me. And the other thing, and this is we talked about being, the principle of authority and being introduced. That's very important. Grab post-it note, write on it, am I being introduced, and stick it to your monitor or something. And remind yourself that you need to be introduced by other people when it comes to your credentials. So you do that more often. You ask people more to
Okay,
introduce you.
I like that one. What's the worst financial or business mistake you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Um, I recently tried to set something up with AI and lead generation, and that was a lot more complex than it looked, and that was a big fiasco. We might circle back to it in the
Absolutely.
future, but yeah, we had the whole. Yeah, we had some people pulled in, but in the end, we couldn't pull it together. So, yeah, you need to bring in the right expertise to make new ventures work.
If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur, past or present, who would it be?
Um, I mean, Dr. Cialdini, I can talk to, but there's another. I mean, there's so many people that I would appreciate, but someone who jumps to mind is Dennis Waitley. I hope I pronounced his name
Mm.
right. I hope he's still around. He's, I think, a motivational coach, and he had this beautiful saying, which I think he learned from his father. And the saying was, or the phrase was, the biggest sin in life is to go to bed at night as stupid as you had awoken in the morning. And I, like him, I realized the wisdom of that. And there's, you can find stuff on YouTube.
Wow.
He has a very beautiful, dark voice. It's wonderful to fall asleep to if you wanted to. But I wouldn't mind spending an
I
afternoon
love
with
that. I'm
him.
gonna have that like printed out and put above my desk. That phrase there. I love that because that's awesome. What's one mindset shift that completely changed the game for you?
I'm sorry. I'll have to circle back to what I'm doing
Mhm.
again. For me, I was in sales and I was trying to just work harder, 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 putting more effort in, and I mean, sure, that produces a little bit of an increase, right? If you do something badly and you do more of it, then you still get more results. But yeah, then starting to use the science, I was actually faced with a challenge where a brand I had taken on had damaged its reputation, and my retailers didn't want to have a bar of it anymore. And I, I dove into the science, let's say, and 18 months later, we were market leader. So yeah, converted ever since.
What's a piece of advice you ignored at first but later realized was gold?
Yeah, well, it came too late for me to help me, but maybe it helps other people, and that's to do with children. You can, especially as a parent, you can work really, really hard, and be away from home to make things happen. Uh, but in the end, your kids don't care about how hard you worked, how far away you are. They rely on you being closer to keep that bond. Um, so yeah, value your children. They're precious. Spend as much time with them as you can.
What's one word you use to describe your journey so far?
Ah, goodness. Did we go over these questions in the
No,
pre?
these are the ones I don't tell anybody about.
I would have. Yeah, good. Say it again. A
What's
word.
one word to describe your journey so far?
Um, the word struggler comes to
Okay,
mind actually. But it's in the same word, in the same way. We also want to develop. So yeah, I guess maybe learn from mistakes. Things go wrong, things don't work.
struggler.
um, get
Okay.
smarter.
If
Yeah.
you had to start over tomorrow with nothing but what's in your head, what's the first thing you do?
A holiday. Take a bit of time for myself and
Okay.
relax. I'm pretty under the pump.
What's one thing people misunderstand about you or your work?
People often think when they hear the word persuasion, they think
Mm,
manipulation, and that's not at all what it is about. It depends on your intent. Yeah, you can use it unethically, but as I explained, it's long-term disaster. So that's why I always wedge that word ethical in
mhm.
front of it to just let you know that I'm not about trying to deceive or twist anybody's arms to make them do things. It's just to allow them to make a yes that is within
And
them.
finally, Patrick, what's your personal definition of prosperity?
I think it's overall happiness. I mean, we need finances to do things that we do, but in the end, if we just have finances, that doesn't necessarily help us either. So, I think I think we need balance between work and what we do. Um, as in the private joys that we have. So when we're out of balance, when our relationship, when we haven't got time with the family enough, then that in the end doesn't really work for us either. So we need
I love
balance.
that. Patrick, thank you so much. This has really been insightful and incredibly practical. And I can't wait for you to come back and for part 2, because there's so much more I want to talk to you about. Thank you for breaking down the science behind persuasion. Thank you for showing all those
All right.
principles, how ethical influence creates trust, connection, and results. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you and access your training?
Yeah, so website is easy, ethicalpersuasion.com.au, because I'm based in Australia, but I do provide most of my training online because it's so convenient no matter where you are. There's also some complementary tools that I can give you access to. If you, in the menu bar, if you navigate your way to free, you'll find some complementary tools there. One of them being a downloadable ebook for which you don't have to relinquish your name or your email address. It's right click and download. There's also a 7-day email challenge, which is good, where you get an added nugget of persuasion gold delivered to your inbox. Of course, for that, we do need your email address, but you don't end up on our newsletter. I hate that when you relinquish your email and you immediately end up on a newsletter. It's a big turnoff for me. So we don't do that unless you ask us to. We have got a very cool, valuable newsletter. And then, I would argue my podcast is excellent. If you thought that this, we're up to an hour now. If you think that this was valuable, there's a lot more in my podcast as well. So that's Ethical Persuasion Unlocked, and you'll find that in all the usual
Perfect.
places.
And I'll link all that down in the show notes as well, and on the YouTube description. So if people want to click on it, they can easily get to it. So Patrick, thank you so much. And everyone listening, thank you for joining us inside the Prosperity Lounge. Until next time, stay faithful, stay fearless, and remember, freedom lives where faith and action meet. The lounge is always open, and so is your next breakthrough. This is the Prosperity Lounge. What a powerful conversation. If today's episode resonated with you, it's probably because persuasion isn't just a business skill, it's a life skill. Every day we're asking for trust, for agreement, for buy-in. And as Patrick shared, when persuasion is grounded in science and ethics, it doesn't push people away, it pulls them closer. If you want to learn more about ethical persuasion, behavioral science, and how to communicate in a way that earns real yeses, I encourage you to connect with Patrick and explore his work, including his book, How to Hear Yes More Often. You'll find links and resources in the show notes. And if this episode gave you a new perspective on communication, decision-making, or leadership, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Business owner, a team leader, a young professional, or even a parent helping their child prepare for interviews and real-world conversations. Thank you for spending time with me inside the Prosperity Lounge. Until next time, stay faithful, stay fearless, and remember, freedom lives where faith and action meet. The lounge is always open, and so is your next breakthrough. This is the Prosperity Lounge.